Hi, everyone, and welcome to our panel about internationalization in the CCI, the cultural and creative industries. I'm Helen Mayer, and I'm your moderator today. I'm a digital innovation consultant within the music industry. This panel about internationalization in the CCI summarizes a workshop that we did beforehand with lots of stakeholders from the creative industries. Different stakeholders meaning intermediaries, creatives, but also startups from the creative industry who all shared their points of view with us. The workshop was organized by the Goethe-Institut in cooperation with the PCI network. The PCI network is a Promoting Creative Industries network, and it was represented by Hamburg Kreativ Gesellschaft and the Kompetenzzentrum Kultur- und Kreativwirtschaft der Landeshauptstadt München. In this panel now, I have 4 participants of the workshop, which is Ida Astran. She's business unit manager at Media Evolution. We have Juliane Kahl, founder and director of Responsive Fashion Institute. We have Yemisi Mokuolo, she's an independent producer and CEO of Hedge Ideas Worldwide Limited. And we have Dennis Pridischkeit, who is co-founder and managing director of Curvature Games. It's great to have you all here. I think it would be great, though, if you guys could give me some more insights about you and also about your point of view about internationalization within the creative industries. Maybe we just start with Dennis, because I think he's already here in the picture.
Yeah, thank you, Helen. I said my name is Dennis. I'm a co-founder and managing director from the gaming startup Curvature Games. We are an indie game development studio from Hamburg. And my point on internationalization is that it's a necessity to create a sustainable company nowadays, to act, think, and behave international.
Great, thank you. Ida, what is your point of view?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Ida Astrand, and as Helen says, I work at Media Evolution in southern Sweden. I do think it's really interesting to discuss what digitalization, and also in the sense of us being in a pandemic, what will last in terms of digitalization also after the pandemic, and what does internationalization mean in a digital context. That's something I would like to stress.
Yeah, thank you. Juliane?
Hi there, my name is Juliane Kahl, and from the Responsive Fashion Institute, we've researched the future of fashion, and we really focus on digitalization in order to support sustainability. So as fashion is such a global industry, internationalization is key for us, and to really share our experience, what we've done so far and what worked and didn't work, and also really start this dialogue about what makes sense and how we can adapt to the current situation. It's, I think, really something we're looking forward to here. Thanks.
Thank you. Yemisi?
Hi, I'm Yemisi from Hatch Ideas, and I'm also an independent producer working across the continent of Africa. So we support a lot of creative and cultural entrepreneurs in their endeavors to set up their enterprises and to be sustainable and to achieve their mission and vision. But for us, it's really important as we talk about internationalization, I can't say the word, as we talk about it, that we think about ensuring there's real equity and what real equal partnership can actually truly look like, especially when we think about resources and capacity when we are engaging with different climates and different approaches and different cultures around the world.
Right, thank you. I think what is really great about this panel is that we have so many different perspectives. We have people here who foster innovation between different organizations, but we also have people who already work internationally. And we have a startup here that really relies on working internationally. Still, was there something in the panel? This is an open question to all of you, whoever wants to go first, goes first. Is there anything, any finding for you that was super important for you and that you didn't consider beforehand, before we had the panel? Did your eyes open somehow? And
maybe
Dennis.
Okay. So first of all, what I noticed in the workshop, which has been really great, how much aspects there are of internationalization. So you can go from macro to micro. So you can even boil it down to how can we individually act and think and become international. Also, we talked a lot about training, which will probably also be a part of this discussion, which I find very interesting. But also on a macro level, how can government support internationalization through workshops, through public funding, through programs, public networks that support players, whatever that may be a local artist or a festival or a startup, and how many aspects. And I think this is really worth it. This topic touches so many aspects of our everyday life.
Yeah. Juliana, do you want to add something to this? I think you also just wanted to go.
Yes, Dennis, I can only agree what you said. I think what I found was really positive was that everyone is in the same situation through this crisis, and we all see a certain need or demand in order to connect and understand each other better and more, and to really make this internationalization up to date. If we look at inclusivity, diversity, and sustainability, I don't like the word anymore because it's been so abused right now, but to make it really contemporary. And I think it's great to start that conversation. And nothing really surprised me. It was more reinforcing the need to connect further.
Yeah. Ida, I think you also wanted to say something, or?
No, but I think also in line with that, what Julian just said, also the importance for us as intermediaries to strengthen our networks and also narrow it down to different CCIs and their needs, and in order to quickly open doors, especially in this situation, that if I have more contacts Europe-wise, I could also easily open doors on my local market. So that's something when we can't meet, when we can't travel, we need to work much more hands-on. So the importance of network was something again came to my mind.
This is great that you just mentioned this right now, because it leads right to my next question, because you also work a lot in the field of digitization, Ida. What do you think has changed the most during this pandemic now, and what will stay after the pandemic in terms of internationalization for the creative industries?
I think one thing that people has become more comfortable is like meeting people online, and like also like lower the barrier for having discussions. Like before the pandemic, you would say that, you need to travel in order to meet someone face to face. Of course, you still need to do that. But a lot of us feel more comfortable in meeting online. And that's also for our CCIs in terms of making matchmaking, like pitching contest, showcase, and then be able to do that online. We wouldn't really consider that before the pandemic. So I do think that several methods in order to connect people, some of them I do think will for sure also stay afterwards.
Yeah, that's great. That's also a point that we figured out during the workshop today, that we are able to be more flexible, but we still need the connection to the people, right? It's great that we have things like Zoom where we can all stay in touch and still network and even maybe become a bit more global. Messi, your topic is also cultural equity and inclusion. What aspect do you consider relevant about it when it comes to internationalization? I think you also mentioned governmental policies before. How does that all play into this topic?
I mean, it's far-reaching. The first thing that came to my mind was agenda. So when we think about the recovery, how do we support local recovery, but also take part in the global recovery? Right now, the next big topic is going to be climate change. It somehow hasn't been spoken about for 9 months. It's going to be back. It's going to be a global agenda. We're going to all have to come together. So do we speak the same language? Do we have the same concepts? Do we have the same resources? Do we have the same capacity? So obviously equity is really important. How do we leave people behind? So when we think about being the creative industries, if we're going to grow a sector and we want to be able to work with, we're in Nigeria, we want to work with someone else in Germany. Do we have the same laws in place? There's so much to it. If we don't have the same laws, does that mean that one country is going to benefit more than the other? So it's a myriad of things. That's why I think if we place equity at the heart of every single conversation, where we are always trying to seek for balance, then we'll be able to. That's why I think it's so important, because I think that the divide, the digital, this has shown such a divide that we can't ignore it anymore. It has to be at the heart of every single conversation.
Yeah, I think that was also a very interesting point that we had earlier in our workshop between you, Juliane, and Yemisi. Juliane, you said that we should think more global now that we are all connected and we all have similar goals, or should maybe have similar goals, and all network and connect with each other. But Yemisi, you also really point out that that we should really consider equity and also make sure that everyone can join in. Juliane, what current issues do you see when it comes to internationalization?
Well, I mean, even though it sounded like we were on different terms, I think we meant the same. We just said it differently because, I know from my own experience, if there's a state of emergency in a West African country and they switch off the internet, I can't inform people about opening times of workshops on Facebook, or maybe in certain other areas, you can't open a PDF, but there are certain areas in Germany where you don't have internet and you can't be on a Zoom conference. So I think I couldn't agree more with Yemisi saying that, we have to bring it all to one level and, not leave anyone out, even if we look internationally, it's regional, it's resources, but it's also generationally as well. I mean, we know it from through society, people with, from certain backgrounds don't have access to hardware, to access the digital realm and things like that. So, I mean, it really applies everywhere. And what I said early on in the workshop was maybe we are beyond this local and international, maybe even with this prospect of the climate crisis, we're all in this together, which sounds stupid and overused and political in a way, but we are. But I think maybe that's a way after this crisis or this pandemic that we can all draw together and hopefully share those resources to get really everyone connected in a way, because in the end, we need to talk and we need to understand each other's needs and requirements. And if we understand that, then we can do things together. Otherwise, we just throw money at things and people we know, and then, it's not effective. And I think the objective should be clearly defined in that, we want to do things that make sense. And if we don't know how to reach people, or we don't know what people need in order to do something together and really understand our own needs as well, I think that's absolutely essential. So.
You just said that if you don't understand the needs, some people might feel left out. Dennis, you're a startup and you really rely on being international. Do you feel left out sometimes? Do you have any current issues or things that you wish for or would like to change?
Just thinking about what I would like to reach. So yeah, I mean, we are in a situation where we are now slowly starting to reach out to other companies, and we are lucky to be in a situation that we already have some contacts. And but I still a thing that I learned also from my past. I worked in agencies and advertisement agencies and marketing agencies. The training in international relationships, because I think what is important that internationalism is not just something you are, but it's something that you do, and you need to think, and you need to behave, and you need to act international. And so this is not something that just pops up and you are suddenly international, but something that you have to actually do and invest time into, and even training. So what I would like to see, or what even like starts, what first programs are starting now, like train young startups in how to actually manage these relationships, because I think it's not something that you just can do, and because there are difficulties and differences, not that someone is better or something is or not as good, but I think actually like giving or like making the people have the ability to communicate and to cooperate, although they are not in the same country. I think this is something that, especially for young startups, I think this is something that we could invest into.
Yeah. Ida, you work for a fostering company. You want to say something? Just add what you want to say. Yeah. And you have to turn on your
mic. No, but I was just thinking from what Dennis just said there and talked about. The gaming industry is known for like being global straight away, and also like the really importance talking about being global. As you also said, Dennis, it's so many contexts and it's so many cultural differences, even though you are global. So I just want to like stress the importance on like training for being in a global environment that is on so many levels, and it's becoming so much more complex than, okay, I'm going into this market, but going in global just for a small startup straight away, that I guess I'm not in the gaming industry, but it could be quite overwhelming with all the cultural codes and all the different contexts. And it's a great opportunity, but it also requires more training for those startups before, doing it and becoming successful.
Are there any programs that already help, partially at least, in this area, in this field, to give startups training how to act globally? Either, or do you work on something like this?
No, I don't work specifically with the gaming industry on that part, but I'm sure there are. I don't know, Dennis, if you have.
I'm just not talking about the gaming industry, but generally about the creative industry to foster this.
Yes, of course. That's also when you are on a project like acceleration processes and helping CCIs going into new market, they are often involved with like the cultural differences layer, and being trained. All the soft skills are often involved in that type of program. Yes. But sometimes also they could become a little bit a stereotype, and that's also a challenge. Like the Swedes are in this way. Think of this when you should interact with a Swede. It could be quite narrow also. So that is a huge challenge.
To tailor it, but not to have it too narrow.
Exactly.
Juliana and Yemisi, you both already work internationally and you have some experiences. What role do institutions like those fostering institutions and their network play for you? Maybe Yemisi, you want to start?
We've got in the UK, we've got very structured exporting programs. So I definitely benefited from the training in terms of just obvious things like know what it is that you want so that you can identify opportunities, what you can offer, being responsive and respectful of cultural differences and codes, knowing that the legal aspects could be and would be different. So being able to add that into your market entry strategy. So so I think it's really important to have some very basic hard skills. But for me, I think that what was quite great was the actual being able to meet with businesses and innovators and creatives in those spaces in a free way, where you networked and you could just meet people based on shared interests or common goals, or maybe just enjoying each other, and you could organically, as you would do in your own environment, develop partnerships. So that for me was really important, just being given the opportunity to take some time to meet people. But I think what's more important is being able to have the strategy before you leave, so that you actually know your intention, because these trips are expensive. I know we've got the digital situation now, but that's not, I hope it's not forever. but you want to make sure that you've got a really good strategy and being supported to have a good strategy, market entry strategy, as well as given the time and space to meet people that you could get on with. It was, really great, that support that I received from the different institutions.
Yeah.
To answer your question, Helen, my first point of entry, or my first international project, was an academic project, so with the University of the Arts in London. So I had to go through a rigid risk assessment project in order to undertake this research. And that was a really tough one, because again, the country where I did it in Ethiopia and East Africa was in a state of emergency right now. So it was a challenge to get that through with risk assessment. But I think it taught me a lot as well. And the second one was, again, a code of conduct from Mozilla, because I participated on the Mozilla Festival in London. Again, we adapted lots of those code of conducts for projects we did afterwards. And that was a really good learning curve as well, because we had this tech approach and this international approach, but also this academic approach. So I think the combination of that and being lucky with finding good local partners as well, because I think it really so important. Or the essential thing is to have good partners, and you really have to learn to follow your gut feeling in order to really connect to people that are good and reliable and trustworthy. And I think it's just maybe a general suggestion, just surround yourself with people that you really, like, and that really makes sense, and that have the same goals than you do too, because all the projects are only so strong as your partners are locally. So
Yemisi, you want to say something, and I'm just going to add a comment from the chat, and I think you also might want to add on to this. So I'm just going to read it out. So people are watching us on YouTube, and I just want to encourage you to engage into the conversation. And if you have questions, I will try to also add them to this panel here. So we have one person says, a crucial point for internationalization are local laws. This is an important point for training of startups. I think, anyways, this is an important point that you also always make, Yemisi. Maybe you want to add to this?
I'm so sorry. Can you actually repeat that?
Yes. A crucial point for internationalization are local laws. I think that's a point that you also made today in the workshop. So maybe you just want to add to this. And also wanted to add something into that as well.
Yes. What I wanted to add was that I benefited from having someone kind of carry out a diagnostic on the service and products that I wanted to bring into the new market, whether or not there was a need for it, and if not, how could I partner with people to localize it and make it work? And I think that actually speaks to this question, was that I had this fantasy that I was going to bring these training programs into West Africa. And the local partner was wonderful, because he was able to help me localize it, so that our role was very much more about framework and building strategic partnerships, and then capacity building people within the countries who had a better understanding of the actual needs of the individual creative entrepreneurs and how their solutions could really work in the local context. So that's made sure that we've been incredibly successful and been able to stay in that space. So one, being able to have, before you leave, a good diagnostic on whether what you have to offer is even needed, and then being able to have a local partner who really understands the informal and formal nuance and policies of their local context. Local partners are, they're everything.
Dennis, do you have any experiences with this?
Sorry, which specific?
With having the
law,
the local law, and did you also find support from fostering organizations in this area?
Yeah, so regarding the law topic, absolutely this is necessary, but in the end, this is just a means to an end, because like from my perspective, I want to make games. Like if any of us here has his first priority is making that what he wants to do, whether it's a festival or fashion. So I think laws are necessary, but of course, this is then, I would say at the end of the day, we need to have professionals to deal with that, because I think it's not possible to get in touch with every local law where you wanna, if you wanna act international. But yes, of course, this is an important point that you should have in mind. Regarding getting in.
Do you feel like this is supported by the fostering organizations, or do you feel like you would need more support with this? Because you just said as well that you as a startup, you have no idea what's going on in every country, and I think it's super difficult, right?
I guess there are fostering programs. The programs that I've been in touch with, also especially from the Kreativ Gesellschaft Hamburg, have been great, but they're it's not the first priority, but it doesn't have to be, I think. The first priority from many, also the gaming incubator from Game City Hamburg, which is a part of the Kreativ Gesellschaft Hamburg. This is I would say one of the priorities are to support the city of Hamburg and to support the local dev scene in Hamburg. Part of that, of course, and I think it's also crucial to support the local industry, is to, like, I think there's a saying, how does it go? Act local but think globally or something. I think there's a lot of truth in that. And part of these fostering programs are, of course, mentors and professionals from other countries. For example, we had workshops with someone from Argentina, from Poland, from the UK, so from all over the world. And I think this is pretty important, although it does not have its first priority in internationalization, but internationalization is an important step in supporting local scenes. So I think this is an important point. Yeah.
Maybe a question to all of you: what role does internationalization in general play for your startup or your business?
I just wanted to just add something to what we said before with international law as well. Not everyone, of course, we don't know, we're not an expert on the international law, the regional law that applies there. But I think what's really important is, don't be afraid to reach out for help locally as well. And that's coming back to the partners as well. You can't be an expert for everything, but don't be afraid to reach out and really, again, find those good partners you feel comfortable with. And don't just suck things, it's a give and take situation as well. So, coming back to respect and meeting on eye level. So I think maybe it's all coming down to soft skills in the end, but don't be afraid to ask for help within limits, obviously.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, because how can anyone help if they don't know what they need to help with? And I think this is so great that we had this workshop today, because we understood the different needs today of different stakeholders from the CCI. Maybe we just say, I'll just ask this one general question again to all of you, and then maybe we jump into the findings that we had today in the workshop, and you can maybe then comment on this, and then we can maybe find a little vision for how this conversation should continue. So Dennis just said that internationalization is just one point, but what priority does internationalization have in your business, in the creative industry? Does it have such a high priority for all of you? It might be different for everyone. Maybe Juliane, you just want to go ahead?
Of course, it's international. For us, again, fashion, it doesn't happen locally. It's a supply chain. It's a non-transparent supply chain right now. It's very exploitive. It's very dirty business. And of course, it doesn't. If you look at fashion, you have to look internationally. And so in that sense, it all makes sense. I mean, I don't think you can. Of course, you shouldn't underestimate the local issues, and there's a local market.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think you have to play it on both ends. You have to play, start being active locally and internationally. I mean, from the sustainable fashion perspective.
Yeah. Yemisi?
Hi. Yeah, for me, it was actually very personal, and it was very much about opportunity. And when we have this conversation, we can't deny that there are certain members of our community who have more privilege than others. So when starting up an enterprise where my need was to support other cultural entrepreneurs, and I was very marginalized and not able to participate in the opportunities where my white counterparts would be prioritized. So I had to internationalize because I had to go and get opportunities and find spaces. And I'd like to say Germany is one that actually valued my expertise and vision and credibility and ability to be able to have a fair opportunity at being able to provide our service. And to speak to what Dennis says, most of us are driven by passion for what we want to do. And so if you can't do it in your own home patch, the immigrant culture or natural bent is to go to another place. What we need to do is make sure that when we do go to these other regions or environments, that we can thrive and we can benefit the local economy there as well. So it's very much about seeking opportunity and the wonderful immigrant spirit that has innovated the planet for millennia.
Yeah, Ida, what do you want to add to this?
No, for us as intermediary, it's of course really important to work on a structured way with internationalization, and we do that in several ways by engaging in projects where our members can join in, and also arranging conferences where we invite people from all over the world. But I do think, in general, the sector is so divided. It's so many subsectors within one sector. So I know we talked about that a lot during the workshop as well, really digging down to the need for each CCIs. That's a really, really important part, because sometimes it can be a little bit tricky when you talk about, the CCI sector on a more structural level, because the different needs vary so very much. And it's a whole other different story if you are in the gaming industry or if you are into performance art, for example. So it's of course based on our CCIs and their needs, but we offer several opportunities to go international.
It's great that you mentioned this, because as you just said, this is also a very important point or crucial point that we talked today within the workshop about. We found out that we really need tailored programs for different people, stakeholders with different needs, and we need to find out about their needs. Maybe we dive a little bit into what we discussed in the workshop and share it with the audience. So maybe a little bit more background about the workshop. Today in this workshop, we just wanted to get this conversation going about internationalization, and we wanted to connect different stakeholders with each other. Today, we didn't want to find any solutions, but we wanted to discuss the status quo and understand what is working well, what has changed maybe also through this pandemic that we're currently in, what will change in the future, and also what do we wish and what do we need in the future. Maybe we start with the first point. How has internationalization changed with the ongoing digitization, and what does it mean today? Ida, you sort of already answered this question, but maybe we now zoom out of maybe just a more broader vision, and not just from your point of view, but maybe from what we discussed in the workshop. We discussed that one important point is opportunity, as you also just said, Yemisi. The digitization brought opportunity, but it was also difficult, like, because some people lost contact to the locals because everyone just thought very globally. And you need to know who your audience is because access is difficult. It would be great to also get your point of view, maybe again onto this, and to understand what you got out of this conversation today. Maybe Yemisi, you wanted to say something?
I was. Should I go?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I thought you raised your hand and.
No. But yes, the thing that we noticed with the current situation in digitization in terms of international working was that the gap between local and global started to grow. So practically whoever could get online was the priority, and then those who could not, and because of the context that we work in around Africa and rural parts of the UK and also the continent of Africa, we found that the local communities, it was almost like there's a digital and non-digital divide happened. And it just happened that it correlated with local and global. So that was the thing that we noticed. We are now working really hard to make sure that we are creating programs that are responsive to people's digital capacity, and also making sure that we are engaging in an offline narrative so that we're supporting people in the spaces that matter to them. So the space that matters to someone could be digital, or the space that matters to somebody could be in their back garden. But we need to make sure that we're really aware that we support people in the context that is going to have the most effect for them. So very practically, we run our workshops. You can access them online and you can do them offline, or you can do them live and online. That's just this very practical example. When we want to maybe provide goods and services, it's about giving people options. And, other sectors do this quite well. But I think when we look at, say, performing arts, you can see that they give a small theatre performance you can engage with digitally, but we're still working really hard to engage with the live performance as well, or we intersect the live and the digital performance. Art galleries are doing this, museums are doing this, but at the beginning, there seems to be a divide. Now I think we're working together to make sure that everybody is coming together. Meaning people with digital richness and people with digital poverty are coming together, and regardless of where they are on the planet.
We have a question from the audience, and I think it just fits right into what you just said about local conditions or understanding local conditions as well. So I'm just going to point this question to you again, Yemisi. Understanding local conditions is such a crucial element in internationalization. How do you find out about the best route in?
Well, what we do is we ask questions. We run our programs, and we actually do a brainstorming session specifically asking that question. We're so fortunate that we have Facebook, we have all these different mediums, and we'll spend a lot of time finding groups and networks who have got a similar vision or mission or priority to us, or LinkedIn, and kindly ask them if they would be happy to engage in conversation, and participating in talks. That's how we've been able to do it, and just being a little bit patient to really understand local needs. And then through that, we've been able to identify people that we can work with. And I think the most important thing is knowing where we're needed. and if we're needed and how we're needed, and being okay with that. So for me, it's been a wonderful opportunity this year to take some space to actually find out what our needs are, but also the local needs and where they can come together. Talking.
Juliana, you also mentioned beforehand the huge supply chain, especially within the fashion industry. Maybe you can also answer that question from your perspective. How do you find out about the best road in? Do you have the same way that Yamisi just described, or do you go a different direction?
No, we have the same route. So we talk as well, and I think that's the best and only approach you can do. Otherwise, it's not effective what you're doing. To be frank, I feel quite limited because I really still like going to places and speaking to people. So all this, what's happening between. So that's not happening right now. But I've been surprised in how effective this digital approach has been, and how it can be embraced, and how you can have maybe more context in a different. I got more than I expected. Let's put it that way from the from the digital approach, and I think it was further. The reach was further, but we're still working on how effective it has been with the content, so to say. So it's, I think, great for getting an overall view. But really, what what's happened when you meet someone, that's missing, and I'm still trying to adapt to that, and so it's work in progress. Maybe I can tell you more next year at this time. So,
yeah, Dennis, you wanted to add something to it, I think.
Yeah, also to connect it with the digitalization or the ongoing digitalization, hopefully ongoing digitalization, especially now under COVID. And I think Ida, you said it also before, like it's really good that the digital tools and are lowering the barrier, and it's now easier. It feels easier. I mean, Zoom was there before, or any other conference tool. I mean, it's not a new thing. That we have been online video conferencing since years and years, but now it's getting more important. And I think this is it's a good way that it's lowering the barrier to talk to each other. Although, of course, it can't. There's still something missing. I think also, Joanna, I think you touched on it, like the in between people. And coming back to the question, what are first steps, or how can we start this whole process of internationalization? I think the best way, also as Yamisi touched, is exchange, to ask questions. And I was talking also about it in the workshop, because I got to know someone at the trade show who's I can't remember his name. I would like to mention it now, but I also don't want to do advertisement. So they are just in short, they are creating exchange programs for young people, for young entrepreneurs, for also just for regular employees, especially now with Japan, because Japan is a very, like the work structure in Japan is very hierarchical. And so to break out of the system that they have in Japan, which can be hard for certain people, they make they offer exchanges with European, or in this case German companies. And I think this is a really nice way of actually, in a safe environment, which has been structured through, I don't know, there are certain things to cross off, like certain things that they need to do. They are being helped with finding an apartment or a flat. And I think we came up in the workshop with it was called soft landing point or soft touch point, and I really like the term. So that programs like these, I mean, it doesn't have to be like this company. I guess there are also many other programs like that, but I think these are really important. They create a safe zone. So they support new players in this field in exchange, and in the best way, I think, after this pandemic, that we're going back to that this can be done in person, like actually just going there and experiencing everything. But for now, I think, yeah, digitalization is the first, like the dip into the water with your big toe. And then hopefully when all of this is getting better, then I think the best way to do this is actually just like the real exchange, in terms of like actually going there, people coming in, talking about stuff, like Yamisi said, asking questions, workshops, brainstorming, etc.
Yeah, Ida, you want to add something to it?
Muted here. No, but one thing that I find interesting, like in the changing our behavior in the digital world, because somehow we got a little bit forced into push. Okay, now we're going to meet online, and it went quite fast for many of us to go from the real world to the digital world. But two things. One thing that I find easier now is like, you know, setting up a meeting with someone that you don't know, both for myself and for our companies. Like, you have lowered the barriers. Like, okay, let's have a meeting. And now more and more people feel comfortable just having a meeting. And before the pandemic, maybe you wouldn't really feel that comfortable just having an online meeting. But also one thing that I do think is really important, that I find that several, like in the digital meeting culture, it has become very effective. And, you know, you're going into a meeting, you have your agenda, you move forward, and it could be quite, you know, strict and sometimes a little bit stressed. But I do want to highlight the importance of the informal meetings online, because also for companies, it's all about, you know, building relationships. And, you know, it's trickier to build a relationship online, but I do think that we need to have more and more informal meetings also online, not with an agenda, you know, sit down, chit chat. And I think that we are getting into a phase where at least more of us become comfortable with that, actually, you know, sitting down, having a cup of coffee together. But that's a really important part for the business making. And I do think that, unfortunately, we've been in the pandemic so far, so we are ready for that more and more now.
Yeah, that leads right away to the second point that we discussed today in the workshop that I would like to highlight here now also in our panel, because we discussed programs that work and programs that don't work at the moment. And what we heard in the workshop was that now what works really well is that you can actually talk with people up front, get to know them, and really understand what the needs are, and then tailor programs to them. But Ida, I think you also managed a program, just as an example, that works really well for you in terms of internationalization. Maybe you want to dive a little bit into this and explain why it is a good example for an exchange program.
No, it's an exchange program where Malmö did a collaboration together with Hamburg. And also, I think some of the success factors there were that we collect a smaller group of people from Malmö going to Hamburg, and then again, Hamburg going to Malmö. And also, of course, having an agenda with different type of business meetings, study visits, you know, experience the cultural scene in each city. But again, several also like informal meetings in order to build relationship. And also maybe, again, not like that strict, you know, trying to keep it a little bit more casual. Let's learn more about this new market. Let's find new connections. And doing it not like a full EU project all the way, but having like a small context where you do this exchange. We have found that has been very successful, and several of the participants has also, you know, started new collaboration, started new businesses from that concrete exchange of group of people.
Was there anything that you learned in particular today in the workshop about these exchange programs, and would you now change something in the future? Something that
I do think that something we talked a lot about during our breakout session was really the importance of having maybe like more of those smaller contexts and more of those narrowing down also to, again, the needs for a specific group. So like more work for us as intermediaries to really make sure that we matchmake both contexts and companies to help them out. That was something we talked a lot about, that being involved in that matchmaking process in an even more concrete way than just saying, join this acceleration program, that staying in more hands-on.
Yemisa, you want to add something?
Just wanted to talk from the point of view of being an independent producer as well. And so with the two key projects. We have a festival in Ghana, which is an international festival. And so we create a two-way situation where people can use our festival as a soft landing into Ghana and then across the continent. We also use it as a pathway for artists from Ghana and across the continent to be able to engage internationally. For us, the most successful things that's happened is actually specific collaborative projects. So we have, as part of the festival, we have a volunteers program. And so we have volunteers that will come from around the world and across the country in Ghana and across West Africa. And they have a common purpose and a challenge that they have to endeavor together. And it's almost a form of team building. And through that, they are able to share their ideas, their vision. It doesn't have to be fully formed. And we've had many projects have come off of that. People have set up surfing schools, people have set up their own retreats. Artists have been able to collaborate musically. Visual artists have been able to find co-producers or producers. And then from the point of view of the international artists, that's the volunteers program. But then we also did our first ever artist residency at the festival this year. Well, I think we were the last festival that happened before lockdown. So we came off the plane back to the UK and straight into lockdown, which was not nice. But yes, so the residency was a really strategic way of bringing artists together to just play and experiment and have the space to get to know each other artistically and on a personable way, and also to be able to structure ways in which they can support each other's international strategy. And every single one of the artists have been able to get links. There's a few of them have been able to get bookings for major festivals like Glastonbury and so on. And they've all been able to work together during this border close down, to be able to provide support. So if you're shut down in your country, who is your person in another country that's helping you to realize your ambition while this is happening? So we had a lot of the German artists were able to support the Ghanaian artists to understand what's happening in Germany, and the German artists, so the Ghanaian could help the German artists to understand while the borders are closed, what the opportunities are still going. I mean, it's been amazing, the free-spiritedness of sharing that's been going on across borders, even in West Africa. And I'll stop there. We do another program which links 5 different West African countries together. And we had fashion designers in Senegal who the opportunities for them had become limited because they couldn't continue with contracts that they had. But then the Cameroon partner, not even partner, people that were on the program. So some of the Cameroonian participants and the Ghanaian participants were able to say to the Senegalese lady, we actually have something that would work in our country that could help. You can ship your bags to us and I will go to the trade fair in my country for you. So it's been a really surprising way people have been able to keep their international strategy and goal, but have to overcome it because of the challenges this year has brought. So that's been very wonderful and surprising. And I hope this is the kind of way we take forward into 2021 and beyond.
I think you just said something very interesting at the beginning. You said common purpose. And I think that is something that we also agreed on during the workshop, that it is great to really tailor, customize to the people who maybe have a common purpose, just so that people meet the right people and that you don't travel unnecessarily, but so that you meet the people who actually understand you and know how to help you, and you're not just talking with just anyone. I think we should maybe move on to the last point that we discussed in the workshop, because I think it is the most important point and the point that probably most of you have to say a lot about. It is about what do we need and what do we wish for in the future when it comes to internationalization. We had, I think, 3 points at the end of the workshop. We had training, networking, and funding as 3 crucial points. I think, Dennis, you had some really nice examples, especially about the point training. Maybe you can dive into this a little bit.
Also, I think what I said before, that internationalization is something you need to do and not something that you are. Because for also just an example from my background, because I remember the first time I worked with a big international company that was from China back, and I was a project manager and account manager for a big creative project, and so this opened my eyes, basically more or less, to how other countries are working, and it doesn't have to be like a specific project. I mean, I think this relies to many aspects, and so I think this was important, because everything that I have learned until so far, working mostly with German, if not European agencies or clients in that case, in this creative agency marketing environment, everything that I learned was completely like I could throw it away. I need to start from the beginning. And so this is why we also in our startup group came to this part of training, and as this is something you can learn. And I think you said this is a talk. I don't know, remember, you said this is a talking thing. So you need to be, so there's a combination of soft skills and hard skills. Of course, you need to be able, from the personal side, to be open to new ideas, but also on the hard skill side, you can also learn, okay, how are other people managing contracts, for example. I mean, this is now the very business part here of the creative industry, but still we're talking about a creative product at the end. But just doing how do they handle contracts, and how do they handle trust is very different from what I experienced in Western, and so what I experienced in the Western countries, that when you start to work with someone, you give them all the trust, and when they, I don't know, make a mistake or something, then you basically take it back piece by piece until, in the worst case, then there's no basis for cooperation left. But what I learned especially from the Eastern culture, that that's the other way around. So you have to build up trust, and this trust, I think, this also points to the thing that Ida said. This is by doing things that are non-business, like talking together, having a coffee together, having a beer together, going out for lunch or for dinner. This is far more important than, I would say, the straight German way, I would call it. So, and I think like back then, I learned through this experience, and I learned through a lot of meetings that have gone a very weird way, which I learned in the past. But maybe, like, if I could back now and to have a wish or something, that maybe a little bit of training, like how I mean, of course you can't boil down a country to a single person and the other way around. So there will always be differences in personalities. But I think for general, like you can learn how certain I don't know, I don't want to call it countries, continents, I don't know, are behaving or dealing, or what is important to them. What do they need to sign a contract, etc. So training, I think, it's a bit in soft skills and hard skills. It's an important point, because also just one last thing, I remember that my old managing director always said reality is a construct. So and I really liked this point, that the more points you have in your life, and with points I mean experiences with an international environment, the wider also your own reality becomes. And I think this is a really important point. So this exchange, although it was quite hard sometimes, really helped me a lot. Also, not just as a professional, like in a business, but also on a personal side. So every exchange point that you have, that you could potentially have, I think adds to your own reality. So I think this is where training can support this even better.
Yeah, I think this is such a crucial point, that we also discussed the different hard and soft skills you need to be successful internationally. We also talked about more structured processes. Maybe Juliane, what do you wish for in this area?
From experience, my best projects were the ones where I had the most freedom, the structural freedoms. So I was able to adapt accordingly, not saying that I wasted money. I mean, it's all taxpayers' money, so obviously there needs to be a structure, and I expect that myself as a taxpayer, if it's from public money. But to really have trust and also have a talking point. I don't think there's any institution that wouldn't understand why you had to adapt a project within the last 8 months. So I think that's a general term. But having a certain flexibility and adjust the project to needs that are not foreseen by the time you wrote the application, that's really great. And really to de-bureaucratize the process as well, because we as creatives spend so much time in filling out applications, and to make it so we could have more time to focus on the projects themselves, I think would be greatly appreciated as well. And I just want to stress again from the point that Dennis made early on, I can only agree, again, reach out and speak to people that worked in certain areas and share experiences. And, you know, maybe we're all a bit too afraid to address questions and ask for support, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think you really need that if you want to understand local demands in different areas.
Yeah, this is just also maybe also to our audience again, if you have any questions, it's your time to ask questions. Yeah, we also talked about the point funding earlier in the workshop, and we discussed that it's really important to understand what funding is actually needed and who needs the funding. Is it just the intermediaries or also the startups, and what are the different needs for them? Ida, what funding needs do you see in your business, in your fostering organization?
Yeah, the funding part from our perspective is foremost through our projects, where we have different type of offers than for our members. So, but of course, we also have collaboration partners to help them to open doors for everything from business loan, or how to assist them in going to apply for different types of their own projects. But our services are basically through different types of projects where we offer them to join in. And also on that part, and it was an earlier question, one thing in terms of what we wish for the future, one project structure that I thought was very beneficial for many of our companies was an EU project called Lean Landing. And it was quite an easy setup. In that project, we were 6 countries in Northern Europe. And then we did like individual workshop with the companies based on their current needs. And then the project basically, it was just about, open doors through those different partners. And it was all, again, very hands-on and very much just networking and helping them open the right doors. So that type of project is something that I would wish for also for the cultural sector, to work more on that hands-on level to open the right doors.
Yeah, maybe Ida, just staying with you, Juliane just said that very often funding is super structured and she is wishing for more flexibility. Do you see that as well? If you give, for example, startups or businesses funding through your projects, do you feel sometimes that you're that you cannot give what you would like to give, or is there any changes that you would wish for in the future?
No, yeah, of course, you would always want to be able to offer more fundings, but I do think that the opportunities that you get through projects with new knowledge, open new doors, travel, that type of services are very beneficial for many companies. And especially like if you're a solo entrepreneur, with many are in the cultural and creative sector, that's really a great opportunity to actually join into some sort of context to take that first important step on your internationalization trip.
Mm-hmm. Yemisi, what would you wish for in the future when it comes to internationalization?
Yeah, I think it's very much about the capacity building and the support. I want to mention two programs that we're involved in. One with the Goethe and Institut Français called IADA Lab, which in 2017 was established to be able to support cross-border engagement in West Africa, and saw 5 different West African countries. So, I mean, it's obvious to say completely different languages, different laws. Yes, there is ECOWAS, there is a common law, but there is also the true law and the operating law. And so, and those are very different. And in the last 2 years, what's been wonderful is being able to get real understanding for the sector about what it means, what the opportunities are, the barriers are towards working internationally. And I think that could only have been achieved by doing. We would never have been, if we didn't do the program, we wouldn't know what skills needed to be built. And so the participants benefit from mentoring, exchange with each other, visiting each other's countries, and being able to devise solutions that can support the whole industry globally, not just in their country or context. So for me, it's more of that. I wish there would be more supported programs that helped creatives to come together to, in real time, overcome their challenges and in real time be able to share their solutions for the benefit of the whole. So for the subsector and industries where there is more conversation. We talk about fashion. Fashion breaks my heart. And, music industry, again, there isn't enough opportunity to make mistakes and to share some of the solutions that have been achieved. And then oh my goodness, I forgot. I had a lab. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was an initiative that was set up by a wonderful lady called Jacqueline Brown, and she sets Africa Fashion Guide. And, she noticed that there was a real need from people around the world to engage with Africa's supply chain and, means of production, to work with the artisans and to find people that they could truly engage with and be part of the growth of the fashion industry across Africa. And so these sourcing trips are great because they are single-minded. They have a complete purpose. You are going there to source material. And that's where I found it's been really successful, when you are being supported in being able to overcome a specific challenge and need to the means of production for your business. So if it's you need to find a distribution partner or you need to source material, those types of initiatives are the ones that I've seen have been great in terms of being able to develop skills, find partners, and really work towards growing the creative experience, the creative business, and to help to innovate within the creative space. So my wish is more of those.
I think that would also probably lead on to our maybe final vision that we have after this day for internationalization within the cultural and creative industries. What would, looking back now at what we've discussed today, what would be your vision for further internationalization?
Is that to me?
Yeah, Yemisi, just please go.
Something, I had no idea in my head, but the thing that has been weighing on me is the constraints of government agenda. Mm-hmm. So when I've been wanting to, if I look at my business and I think, right, this is a country I want to enter into because it meets the needs of my business, when I try to find support locally, it's very difficult unless I'm fitting alongside my country's choice of countries it wants to engage with. Sorry if that sounds clumsy. So, for instance, there might be 17 countries are priority. If the country that I'm working with doesn't fit into that, then there seems to be very little support, if no support. So very practically, when we started, we're UK, and we wanted to work and expand our services across Africa. But because there was only 2 countries, I don't even think there were any countries in Africa that were on the UK government's priority list, we weren't able to get any support. And the support that we had to generate ourselves through other means of networking, going there ourselves and kind of figuring it out by ourselves. So for me, if there was a vision, it would be that we could grow outside of government agenda and government kind of political strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. Juliane, it would be really nice to hear your perspective and your vision, because I feel like you and Yemisi, you have had very similar experiences. So it would be great to hear your vision now.
Yes, I think there's a barrier from the funding aspect and from the creative aspect. And again, I think the creative industry has been so strained recently, the last month. So I think it's a certain, it's not a hobby what we're doing. And, there's a perceptive that it's not being as valuable as other industries. So I think to say we want to make it more international and continue our international work, it's really looking at how we can conduct that to make it timely and equally and efficient. And money isn't everything. Money is great, but I think you can, if you throw a lot of money at someone and it doesn't do it right, he or she, then it's pointless, and it's wasted money. And I think there's a lot of money being wasted, and it's lots of money not being paid out. So I think having this conversation, starting this conversation, and I want to thank all the organizers for this think tank and the panel now to really finding the needs in this time of crisis and really see what makes sense from the sustainability aspect, from the human aspect, what are needs, what are desires, and just really throw everything in one pot and make sense out of it. So it's a kind of democratizing process of the capacities, of the knowledge, of the skills, and really try to make sense of it all. Because again, there's this term, it's called, Yemisi, that it's a Hilton research, so it's been too much Hilton research going on. So you go there, it's this colonized way of going somewhere in a 5-star hotel, you do a bit of shopping trips, you look what's happening, and then you fly home and buy right on your port. Not saying that's being always happening, but it has happened, and it has happened for a long, long time. So I think it's really great in time to really join forces and do something together that makes sense, or continue doing things that make sense. Great things have happened as well. I don't want to slack it all off, but it's really time to democratize the whole system and projects and offers, and just really support each other, locally and internationally. It's no divide anymore. Again, we're all limited to this little frame, our heads and our shoulders. That's there is right now. So let's make the most out of this format,
Is there anything specific that you're wishing from fostering organizations?
Well, coming from Munich, I had really fantastic experience with Munich Kreativ, and I think they really supported us in a way that we are able to do things now that we wouldn't have done otherwise. And again, it's building this trust with your partners, and I think it's not just the international partners; it's the backup partners as well. And I can only really suggest to everyone, go and find your partners and stick to those people that feel good, because they are the ones that put you to the next level. And again, support in the other direction as well. If you're being approached by people who want to do something international, don't keep the knowledge to yourself. Open up and share your experience and your knowledge, and really use this multiplicator effect that the digitalization has offered as well. So really push for that and communicate and reach out. Again, just this empowering effect, if you have this idea and you want to do this project internationally, you look for partners, you really see who fits best, but then you really have some sort of a mentorship by someone who's a big institution. I think that's worth so much as well. Like saying someone you really think it's really amazing and does really great work and is really successful and really out there and does something. If he or she supports your project and think, I support this, I think this is great. I think that by itself is so much backup for yourself that it really supports your project as well. And that's not monetary. This time that someone can invest into your project as well.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, that if I speak to startups or so, that I always point out as well, just share your ideas, because they can only get better if you start to ask questions. Dennis, what is your vision after today?
So everything that Juliane just said, I really liked it. And I think although this is meant to be a panel, I really like that we're all just agreeing, which is really nice. No, but really, I think my vision is that this pandemic and the forced digitalization through that as a driver continue democratizing this whole process. And as also Yemisi said, that also for rural areas without internet, that the gap between offline and online gets smaller instead of wider in the future. Now with this digitalization that we have now because we are just forced to stay home in this time, my wish regarding that is also, maybe it's a big wish, but I think also one point that we touched in the workshop before is that, I mean, I think from my perspective, and also I know that this is privileged from a German point of view, but that the internationalization was on a good way until recently, because now, due to this pandemic, the first reaction from basically every country was to shut down. And I mean, this is of course an understandable thing to do when there's such a threatening thing to close your doors and close your windows, and then to say, okay, I don't want to have people. And now Yemisi, you set the example that some African countries blame Europe for bringing in the virus into Africa, and I think this is unfortunately now something which kind of gives a little bit force into nationalism. And my wish would be for the future that we somehow, in the future, I think this will take a long time, but as nationalism, I think a straight voice against internationalism, and we can see the rise of nationalism in many countries, whether it's in Germany, it's big time in Germany, UK with the Brexit, US, look at the president. My wish is that we are kind of find our way out of this, that we work against it, that we work for democracy. And now this is a big fancy words now, but I would really think that this is important. And so I really like the democracy hashtag basically from Juliane, that we kind of make this available to everyone, with whether it's in a rural area or not, and that we kind of work together to now come out of the situation even stronger and better and more democratized than before.
I think that it's a great vision, and we're not talking about the solution to get to the vision right now. We're talking about our visions and about the status quo. So I think it's great to share that vision. Now I'm really excited to hear your vision, Ida. And after this workshop, I'm so curious to hear your vision about the future of internationalization.
Sorry, muted again. I think both the discussions we're having today, but going back a little bit, ending up in a pandemic, I think it's one interesting aspect is that we were already in a climate crisis that concerned everyone, and then we ended up in a pandemic and it concerns everyone. And that really have stressed so much that we can't solve our problems on our own. And the whole collaboration part, even though it's the climate crisis, or if it's the pandemic, or if it's the cultural and creative sector, I do find it so important that we collaborate more on those bigger questions on so many levels. Because as I said earlier, many in the cultural creative industries, there are individuals, and coming together, you can make a much stronger impact, both on a regional level or a national level or an international level. So like this whole pandemic situation has also stressed the importance of collaborations. And I also find this type of context where people get together and meet and you feel like the energy and you want to do something together, but we are all in our silos, most of us in home at the moment. And I do think that that's driving force because, one way or another, hopefully we will get through this pandemic. And I do think like the collaboration will come stronger out of that into the future, or at least hoping for that.
Yeah, I think that is so true. We also have a comment from the chat, just a comment, but I think it's nice to read it out to you. Thank you so much for everyone's input. That really helps to add focus when looking at internationalization. I wish for more topic-related platforms and networks to come together. And I think this is something that we can all agree on maybe after this panel and the workshop that we had today. We focused today on the status quo and on our vision. We didn't formulate any solutions about the future. This was a first step to foster internationalization and think about what is actually needed within the cultural and creative industry. We discussed that it is important to lower the barriers for everyone so everyone can join in. Some topics are global and you cannot access them just locally, because just look at climate change. We talked about the understanding of different needs of people and that we need to tailor programs to the needs of the people. We need to tailor training and education. We need to tailor networking and funding, and we need to help people to find the right partners on a global basis. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining the panel. I think it was super interesting. I don't see any more questions from the chat, and we're almost through now. If there's anything you want to say now, then please feel free to say it, or I would just wrap it up now.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Helen. This is the last thing I would like to say. Thank you for moderating.
Yeah, thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
Everyone else, nice meeting you, and let's start a conversation.
Yeah.
It was nice meeting every one of you, and I'm really looking forward how this conversation will continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.